Hello everyone, and welcome to our Lifestyle Medicine Master Series. This is our 2022 Employee Wellness Program for Banner Health. If you are new to this Lifestyle Medicine program and haven't taken our Lifestyle Medicine 101 series, we would encourage you to consider watching that series before starting this one. The goal of this series is to go another step deeper into lifestyle medicine to help you harness your health and live the life that you are dreaming of. Below is the schedule of events for our Lifestyle Medicine Master Series. The first session will run from June 1st through July 6th. This same session will then be repeated on August 17th and run through September 21st. This will be a repeat of the initial session, so you can only submit points for one of these sessions. Videos are released weekly on Wednesdays, and we would encourage you to keep up on the videos so that you have at least 1 week to implement action items that you find from the session that you just attended. Once you complete all of the videos, there will be a survey for you to submit. In submitting that survey, you will need to wait about a week, and then you'll receive information for how to obtain your Virgin Pulse points. Please be patient with us as we get that information to you, and there will be details available on the Link website for obtaining your points. The sessions will be as followed. The first is today, and this is You Improved, a Goal Setting Workshop. This session takes a deep dive into goal setting for short and long-term goals. It helps you learn how to overcome challenges and barriers along the way and have an improved version of you at the end of the session. We hope that the items from this session will apply to all of the future sessions, since goal setting is a critical component of addressing any aspect of lifestyle medicine. Week 2 is Flourish with Positive Psychology. Positive psychology is a newer form of psychology that was established around 2000 by Dr. Martin Seligman, and he notes that for true happiness and fulfillment in life, you need to have 3 key ingredients. During this session, we will take a deep dive into what these 3 pieces are and how you can use them to create the life you desire. Week 3 is a nutrition deep dive. So in our Lifestyle Medicine 101 course, we talked about the health benefits of a plant-predominant diet. This time around, we're taking a deeper dive into what plants are that make them so healthy. You will learn how to know what foods are high quality, discuss the premise behind inflammation from the standard American diet, also called SAD, and learn the basics of phytonutrients. Week 4 is Fitness for Life, finding a fitness regimen you will actually enjoy. So for many people, exercise tends to be a mundane or exhausting thing that you feel that you quote-unquote must do. This makes it a chore instead of a choice. Our goal is to show you the wide range of options for physical activity and empower you to find an exercise program you want to continue to do long term. You will also learn how exercise fits into your health and well-being goals. Week 5 is Fueled by Connection. Did you know that loneliness is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day? During this session, you will learn the importance of relationships and connection for your health and well-being. And lastly, we'll end our series with Filled Up, reclaiming mealtime and with mindful eating and intuitive eating. Our society has ingrained 2 contrasting approaches to food for us: a diet mentality that labels food as good and bad with frequent restriction, as well as rapid, mindless eating of rich foods. Learn how you can reclaim your relationship with food and stay on track with mindful and intuitive eating. And now for our first session. So I am Dr. Lynn Stiff. I am a board-certified lifestyle medicine provider as well as a family medicine physician, and am in the midst of an integrative medicine fellowship. So I'm really passionate about helping people take care of all aspects of their life and their health in using a variety of means of getting there. And so one very important concept that will carry through in any intentional diet or lifestyle changes that you're making is goal setting. So our session today is You Improved, a goal setting workshop. So this is what we'll talk about today. Why does goal setting matter? SMART goals, short versus long-term goals, creating a goal map, and what to do when things don't go quite as planned. So why does goal setting matter? Setting goals gives you a framework. So having this framework gives you a mental picture of where you're going and how you'll get there. People who formally set goals are more likely to achieve their end goals. Sometimes people will be very generic with their goals and say, I'd like to be fitter, or I'd like to do a race one day. And they're very loose goals that have no framework at all. And so the likelihood of you just happening upon those things in your life is very slim. But if you say, I want to run a 10K in 6 months, that gives you a starting point where you can then have intentional decisions that you make today that will get you to that end goal that you're looking for. Setting a goal changes your view. So if you have a specific goal in mind, you start to look at the world through a lens of you achieving that goal, especially if you've told other people about it. So it will get you to nudge in that direction when sometimes you might want to do something else. So if running a 10K is your big goal in 6 months, you'll start to think about, how will I fit in an exercise plan? Gosh, I can't even run a mile. How am I going to run 6.2? I need to start doing something about this. And so then it will change the way you view things in your day-to-day life. You might decide to go to bed earlier because you know you'd like to get up in the morning to do your exercise before life gets busy. You might choose to go on a vacation where you'll be walking more as opposed to something where you'll be lounging on the beach, because you know that that will help get you to be slightly fitter during that vacation. So having that goal in mind is just going to open up possibilities that you might have not realized were even there. And then setting goals holds you accountable. So when you set a goal and you tell someone about it, it keeps you honest. And so if you tell your friends that you're planning to run this 10K in 6 months, in 3 months they might ask you some questions about it, or you might wonder that they're going to ask you questions about it. And so you'll feel an urge to make sure you do what you said you were going to do, and you'll be more likely to follow through because you know other people are paying attention. So SMART goals. I'm sure some of you have heard of these before, and we do have a putting it into action video about SMART goals that I did last year for our lifestyle medicine program. So feel free to look on our YouTube page for that video. But in general, SMART goals are a very established framework for how to set goals that are more likely to be successful. So S is specific. What exactly do you want to do? M, this is measurable. How are you going to track this goal, both the thing that you're doing and how often you're doing it? A, attainable. Is this something you actually can do? This can be a variety of things. So it could be you deciding you want to run a 10K and deciding that you're going to do it in 6 months instead of 1 month because you don't currently run. So can you run at all is probably the first question. And if you can, you don't have any medical condition that would limit you from that, then you could consider this as being your goal. This is very similar to realistic R. And so is it something that will get you where you want to go? So these two can be somewhat interchangeable almost. Attainable is, could you actually do it? And realistic is, this actually something you want to do? Another example that looks at these areas would be if you wanted to do something like mountain climbing, but you live in a flatland area without a climbing gym. It's going to be a lot harder for you to reach that goal of climbing some really amazing peak if you don't get to practice. And so trying to think about the circumstances that you're living in, your current level of determination and interest in these goals, and in deciding, is this something I can do? If I trained, could I actually do it? And is this something that realistically I'm going to follow through on, that I would actually be able to fit into my lifestyle for training for? And then T, timely. Will this produce results in a way that you can see in a set time period? So you need to make sure you put a framework in for how long you're working towards this goal, and then also consider putting in checkpoints for when you're checking in on how it's going. So again, back to the 10K example, setting a 10K goal for in 6 months is a very easy to measure time frame, and you'll likely talk about some shorter term goals to get you there, which we'll go over in the next few slides. So one example of a SMART goal is, I will walk my dog for 30 minutes every day before work, Monday through Friday for 1 month. So that goal is one you are very clear on what you're supposed to do. There's no gray area. If it's raining or snowing outside, It doesn't influence the fact that you said you would walk your dog for 30 minutes every day before work. And you can personally decide how flexible you want to be with it. But this is very clear. And so this is something you can measure, and you can be sure you're actually doing what you committed to do because it's so clear. And you can measure to see how successful you were at doing that at the time period specified. So this is saying for 1 month. So next we're going to dive into short and long-term goals. And we have some additional slides coming up that are going to go into more detail for these. But in general, long-term goals are the ones that are big picture, dreaming in the future. You know, one day I want to do this really great thing. And you know right now you can't do that. And you're almost a little scared to tell anyone you want to do this. But you also know deep in your heart you really do want to do this and you can do this. These are the goals that are going to help anchor you when you're then making your short-term goals. And so sometimes the long-term goal isn't quote unquote smart because it's so far in the future, it's really hard for you to pin down exactly what it is that you want to do. But it still has some detail. It's not just, I want to be healthier. It has some sort of detail so that you can create short-term goals that are the stepping stones to get you there. So the short-term goals are these much more smart, measurable goals that will work stepwise to get you to the place that you desire to be. Long-term goals are where we'll start because you really need to think about where you ultimately want to be before you can create the short-term goals to get you there. If you start with a short-term goal, you can sort of see where it leads you, but you're not being intentional with where you're trying to have it guide you, and you might get frustrated because you're not getting the results or the outcome that you're desiring. So long-term goals are things like asking yourself, where do you see yourself in 1 year? How about 3 years? What about 5 years? Write out what these big goals are, the ones you don't want to tell other people because you're a little worried that they're too big. This is the anchor point that you're going to refer to when you decide what short-term goals to consider. Then you want to ask yourself, what steps will it take to get me to this big goal? And you'll work backwards to start creating short-term goals. So sometimes if you have a goal that's a year out, you might start working backwards and realize that your first goal is your 9-month goal, and then your next goal is your 7-month goal, and then the next one is the 5-month goal, and you'll keep working until you get to a point where you are today. And then you can ask yourself, is starting where I have myself right now going to lead to this big goal? And if it seems like the timeline is too short, or it seems like the timeline is not linear, then you want to reconsider, maybe this big goal is actually 2 years out and not 1 year out. Or maybe some of these smaller goals I put here don't directly lead to where it is I would like to be. So then you are going to be thinking about your short-term goals. So these are usually 1 or 3 months in duration, and they're focused on the steps that are needed to get towards your larger goals. These change more often, and you might learn from these and have some trial and error episodes. So it doesn't mean you're a failure or that you should give up on your big goal if one of these doesn't go right. It can be really challenging to nail every short-term goal you make because life happens and we can't always plan perfectly. And we want you to be setting goals that are a little audacious. You don't want them to be too easy. And so sometimes it's not going to go as planned. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later about reframing that. But just keeping in mind that these can change often and you're not married to these goals as the end-all be-all of getting you to your end goal. So next I want you to take 10 minutes and write out your biggest A goal. And so this is going to help you in creating your goal map. So there's a worksheet that is linked in the video that you can download if you'd like to use some paper and pen to kind of figure this out a little, maybe paper and pencil, since there will probably be some crossing out that happens in erasing. And so you can do this right now, or you can finish this session and come back to this slide and that handout. But I would encourage you to make sure you give yourself some very focused, uninterrupted time to work on this. Because this map is going to be your framework, and it might seem like we're spending a lot of time on the back work and the prep, but if you prep appropriately, then you're more likely to create goals that are going to get you to where you want to be. Sometimes it's appealing to just sort of show up and do something spontaneously. And while that can work from time to time, it's very rare that something spontaneous becomes something great. And so it's really important that we create this goal map. So I would encourage you all to schedule some focused time to work on this. Now, what to do when things don't go as planned? So, like I mentioned before, it is inevitable. Something will get in the way. And so life will happen. You'll have an injury. Something will change with your financial situation. A vacation will come up. Something will happen that will make your perfect plan kind of unravel in front of your eyes. And so it's really important that before you even get started, you think about the things that could happen. So with the 10K example, it would be a lot more challenging to train for your 10K if you don't like the cold and the snow. And in October or November, you decide you're going to train for a 10K in the spring. Well, that means you'll have to be running outside if you don't have access to a treadmill in the cold and the snow and probably the dark, for multiple months. And so you want to think, how's that going to go? Is this really what I want? Or do I want to change my goal to be a 10K next fall so I can train during the nicer months? Or it might be the opposite. You may be very heat intolerant and you like running in the cold and the dark. And so you'll want to plan things accordingly. So taking some time before you start to think about what might come up that will derail me. And I would encourage you to look at your goal map and choose 3 to 6 things that you think could come up over the course of that map that could derail you. And just think about a brief action plan of what you would do. So you get sick. How are you going to handle that? Because then when it comes, it won't blindside you. It will be significantly less stressful, and you'll let it just go with the flow. You'll be able to go with the action plan you instituted and not worry about your entire goal and all the work you've put into it unraveling in front of you. And so using that goal map that you've already created, you'll go in and put in these, maybe on the side, have a list of what I'll do if, and list out again 3 to 6 different action items that you might take in different situations. And then when you're going through your goals, you're maybe 3 months in, you want to make sure you're having regular check-in points to make sure your progress is as you would expect. And so you maybe wrote this goal map out and things are going pretty well, but when you reflect back, you realize you made it too easy, or you made it too hard, or you actually started to like something else more. Like maybe you really started liking hiking and you don't want to run a 10K. You want to actually go hike some really amazing peak in the mountains. And so that's okay. You can change your goals if you want to. And so I would encourage you to have regular check-in points you can assess. Am I on track where I should be? And is this still the goal I want to work towards? Because it's okay to change. Next, if things aren't going as planned, give yourself some grace. That'll come up again, but consider it to be a learning opportunity to restructure your goal for success. So let's say you're 3 months into your 10K training plan and you hate it. You absolutely hate it. You're doing walk run because running itself was painful on your joints. After you get to 3 miles, you're just miserable and you haven't figured out how those, crazy runners are, talking about a runner's high, because really you just hate every minute of it. Well, you shouldn't torture yourself just because you said you wanted to do this goal. Instead, maybe think about this as a learning opportunity. So you learned you're not a runner. That's okay. And maybe you also learned what things you like to do to move your body and what things you don't. And then you can reflect and say, why did I want to run the 10K? What about it was so appealing? And as you drill down, you might realize that there's a different activity or goal you can work towards to get you that same feeling you were hoping the 10K would give you. And so consider this a learning opportunity, not a waste of time in any way, and you're not a failure. This is just all part of life. There are lots of ups and downs and growth experiences, and this is just another one of those. Next, you want to reflect on the events that have led up to the point that you are and determine what steps could have been taken to change the outcome. So this is when things, the slide is titled, when things don't go as planned. So again, let's say you are injured. You've been doing your 10K plan and you just feel horrible. Every time you go out, you're good for 2 days, and on the 3rd day of the training plan, you feel miserable. So reflect on what your training looks like. Should you be running the whole time, or should walk run be in your plan? What kind of prehab and rehab are you doing? And all the things that could be causing you to get this injury. And then you can decide what steps you can take Because let's say you still want to do the 10K, right? It's not the one before where you're like, I don't want to do this. You still want to do it, but you're just frustrated because it's not going as planned. Just think about how you could approach it differently. Could you get a coach? Could you have a friend that helps you out in some way? Could you see a physical therapist? So just think of the ideas and the people that could help support you. Similarly, do you have someone you can talk to or who can support you in some way? So this could be, like I mentioned, a coach or a friend, or just someone, a family member who can help you stay accountable. And last but not least, give yourself grace. We are all human. No one is perfect. When we see social media posts about these great big goals people had, there was a whole lot of ugly you're not seeing in that picture, right? There were things that were hard. There were tears, injuries, all kinds of things that happened that you're not seeing when you look at that picture perfect post that sounds really inspiring. Because things that are great don't happen easily. Very rarely, I guess. Maybe they could end up on chance, but in general, they take a lot of hard work and effort. And people don't tend to brag or post about the 20 failures it took before they got to this one big goal. And so, this is all a journey, and you have to give yourself grace and accept that it might not go perfectly the first time, but it's how you deal with that setback that will determine what outcome you're going to have. Because if the setback it totally derails you, you're not going to have any goal at the end, and you're going to feel poorly about yourself and frustrated about the time and energy and maybe money you spent. But if you can change your perspective and see this as a learning opportunity, I can guarantee that you will get to a goal that's even better and bigger than you could have imagined. It just takes a lot of reflection and ups and downs to get there. And now action steps. So we're hoping to end all of our master series with action steps. So some things I want you to think about today, in addition to doing your goal map. If you can pick one thing to work towards, what would it be? So this is that big A goal. What is it that you really want to work towards? And when would you love to reach that goal? So is this something that you're willing to wait for, or is it something that you want really soon? And how can you modify the goal to kind of be in alignment with that time frame? What one step can you take today to get you closer to reaching that goal? And so you could write a SMART goal to get you started. Or it could even be, I'm going to schedule 30 minutes on my calendar, because remember, time is precious. We all are looking for more of it. So I'm going to schedule 30 minutes on my calendar to just have a dreaming session, to just think about all the goals you want to accomplish, what one you want to focus on, doing your goal map. That could be your first step, and that is a very realistic and reasonable first step. And it's going to be, again, talking about what I mentioned earlier with all the prep work, that's going to make you more successful than just kind of going out today and walking for 30 minutes for the first time. Because if you don't ever walk, that walking for 30 minutes, you might be sore, you might not know what you're going to do next, you might not have a plan. And so, thinking about what one step can you take today that's going to get you closer to your goal, what SMART goal can you write related to that? And then I want you to commit to filling out your goal map in the next week. So when you start the next session, you will have that in mind, and you can hopefully apply some of the concepts you're learning in the future weeks. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.